Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies, Peace Corps' Director of the Office of Third Goal and Returned Volunteer Services, BJ Wettstein.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us here tonight, and I would like to welcome you to the 2016 Peace Corps Franklin H. Williams and John F. Kennedy Service Awards. So I am BJ Wettstein, returned Peace Corps volunteer, China, and the director of Peace Corps' Office of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services. I am so lucky to be with all of you here tonight, so many people who really believe in Peace Corps' mission of world peace and friendship. Tonight, we have the privilege to recognize members of our Peace Corps family who have gone above and beyond in their efforts to achieve Peace Corps' mission. I would also like to thank the National Peace Corps Association for collaborating with us and including this program in the Peace Corps Connect conference. So thank you to NPCA. So this awards program is actually a part of Peace Corps' greater celebration of our 55th anniversary. It was actually 55 years ago yesterday that President John F. Kennedy signed the Peace Corps Act into law and established the world's most successful and respected international volunteer program. But of course, the signing of the Peace Corps Act wasn't the first step in the process of the creation of the Peace Corps. It actually just marked the culmination of many months worth of work of pragmatic idealists who wanted to bring this concept of the Peace Corps to life. And just about a year before the signing of the Peace Corps Act, then candidate Kennedy was famously late to his planned campaign stop at the University of Michigan. And of course, we all know this story, but I have to tell it in this room. But of course, Kennedy was late. His campaign staff was saying, you know what, just go home, get some rest, and we'll hit this again tomorrow. But 10,000 people had waited to hear him speak until 2 a.m. And so when he walked out and he saw that huge crowd, instead of going to bed, he stepped onto the stairs of the Student Union at University of Michigan, and he posed a very simple question to the assembled students and faculty and people that were there to see him. He said, "How many of you who are going to be doctors and engineers would be willing to spend your days in Ghana?" And with that question, it ignited something that had been pent up in the imagination of America. The students that were there that day went forth and signed petitions and wouldn't let President Kennedy forget about that promise that he made on that campaign stop. And he absolutely delivered. And the signing of the Peace Corps Act, which happened 55 years ago yesterday, was the proof of his dedication to that promise. So without further ado, I would like to introduce a person who really embodies those ideals that Kennedy had imagined when he set up the Peace Corps. And that is our 19th director, Carrie Hessler Radelet. So Carrie has served as the director of the Peace Corps since 2014, and prior to this, she actually held the role of acting director and deputy director, and she's been with the agency since 2010. She served as a Peace Corps volunteer, as we all know, in Samoa from 1981 to 1983, and is a member of a 4-generation Peace Corps family. There are not many RPCVs that can actually say that. So in her tenure as director, she has overseen historic reforms to the agency, which we heard about this morning for those of you who are at Connect. But just to summarize, an overhaul of the volunteer recruitment and selection process that has led to historic numbers of applications to the Peace Corps. She's also worked on forging and expanding strategic partnerships that bring in information and resources to the agency. And she is also a tireless champion of the health and safety of our Peace Corps volunteers. So ladies and gentlemen, please extend an exuberant Peace Corps welcome to our director, Carrie Hessler-Radelet.
I love that. That is exuberant. That is an exuberant welcome. And how about that, BJ? He's so shy. Thank you, BJ, for your warm welcome and for the journey through history. I'm really thrilled tonight to be here. This is one of my favorite evenings, I have to say. We're so happy to be here in conjunction with NPCA. I'm sort of pointing at Glenn, but we're delighted to be hosting this event along with the National Peace Corps Association and with all of you who are here for Peace Corps Connect, the largest Peace Corps Connect, I believe, in history. So hats off to NPCA and to Glenn and his team. I also want to say how thrilled I am that Stacy Rhodes is here. He was our chief of staff and just dear, dear friend. Here he is. Let's just give him a hand. Woo! We could give him an exuberant wow. So whether you've traveled across country, whether you've just come from across the street, whether you have traveled from the other side of the world, or whether you're joining us by live stream, I want to make sure that you all feel very welcomed and warmly welcomed today. We are so thrilled to have you here today. This is really a true celebration of the meaning of the Peace Corps family. First of all, you heard this, the history lesson from BJ. You know, we're not looking bad for 55, are we? Look around. Pretty darn good, huh? Yeah. When I look around this room and I see the faces of our returned Peace Corps volunteers, a few currently serving volunteers, or a few people who just COS'd, 3 days ago. There are a few of you like that. I see family and friends. I see our Peace Corps staff. All of you embody the true meaning of Peace Corps, the Peace Corps family. We come from many different countries of service. We served in many different years, decades of Peace Corps service. We worked on many different kinds of activities. We come from very different backgrounds, but we are all one Peace Corps family, one beautiful Peace Corps family. It's such a privilege to be part of this Peace Corps family. I'm reminded of a story that I heard about our fearless founder, President John F. Kennedy, who on the occasion of another historic speech that he was giving to launch another historic agency a long, long time ago, that also recruited our nation's best and brightest and and asked them to serve far, far away, meaning NASA. So the story goes that he was in NASA, where we, by the way, have a great partnership. And he had just finished a tour after really the establishment of that agency as well. And as he was finishing up, he noticed a janitor that was there. And so he just walked over to the janitor and he said, "Hello, I'm Jack Kennedy. Maybe you could tell me about your work." And the janitor looked up at him and he said, "Well, Mr. President, I'm putting a man on the moon." And I just thought that speaks volumes. That says it all. And I feel like that's what it is at Peace Corps too. At least that's what I really hope all of us feel, is that no matter what our role is, whether we're a currently serving volunteer, a returned volunteer, a staff person, an RPCV or non-RPCV, I hope every single person understands how important their particular role is in carrying out our beautiful, beautiful mission of world peace and friendship. It's such a privilege to be part of this extended Peace Corps family. You know better than anyone that our moonshot of a mission, world peace, has not quite yet been accomplished, although I think we've made some progress. It's not for the faint of heart. And for 55 years, our pursuit of that towering task has both been possible, not only because of our passion and our persistence, but because of the efforts of every single member of our extended family. Our amazing volunteers who show the world the best face of America every single day, and I'm reminding of that every time I go into any Peace Corps country. Our staff who work day in and day out, 24/7, 365 days a year. We're going to have a chance to honor some of those staff people in a few moments. Our partners in our host communities and our host countries who open up their hearts and their homes to our Peace Corps volunteers. And our family and friends who actually sacrifice a lot too. It's a sacrifice to have your loved one go off into Peace Corps. We're so grateful for the love and support of our family members. And so we're delighted that we have family members here joining today for this effort. All of these things enable us to do our important and life-changing work. Tonight we celebrate a small group of individuals who represent the very best of our mission. Men and women who have each gone well above and beyond to serve the cause of peace, both here at home and overseas through their service. So now I'm going to talk about the two awards. First, the Franklin H. Williams Award. It recognizes diverse returned Peace Corps volunteers who continue the Peace Corps mission in their communities through their commitment to community service and through their support for our third goal. Our third goal, you know, is all about bringing the world back home, and it celebrates the dividends of Peace Corps service. And this year, as we recognize 3 extraordinary returned Peace Corps volunteers and 1 very special friend of Peace Corps, we remember the work and we honor the work that each of them has done to get them recognized for this incredible honor. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It truly embodies the spirit of the Franklin H. Williams Award. It pays tribute, this award pays tribute to one of Peace Corps' most remarkable architects. Franklin H. Williams worked at Peace Corps from the very, very beginning. He was a very close friend of Sergeant Shriver's. And he was our first regional director in Africa, and later on served as U.S. Ambassador to Ghana. And as such, he was instrumental in laying the foundation of our programs and advancing our mission across the globe. During his years with the Peace Corps and beyond, Ambassador Williams dedicated much of his time, especially in his off hours, to nurturing the careers, especially of minority Americans who sought a career in the international service. He did so much from his perch, both with Peace Corps and as an ambassador with the State Department, to encourage all Americans to serve and represent their countries. In the words of Leslie Jean-Pierre, the Peace Corps staff member who helped create the Franklin H. Williams Awards in 1999, the award is at its heart a community award inspired by its trailblazing namesake and dedicated to recognizing the individuals who carry on his legacy in strengthening diversity and inclusion and fostering opportunity for all. I want to recognize Leslie because he's here, and it was really his efforts that got this started in the first place. Leslie, can you please stand, although we can't see you because it's so dark here. Yes, Leslie. Come on down here for a moment. Leslie Jean-Pierre, an awesome person, phenomenal person. I have traveled with Leslie on numerous occasions, and I can tell you there is no one who better represents those values than Leslie. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, for those of you who are here this morning, I mentioned this already, but now more than ever, we were reminded of the importance of our work, and especially in developing skills and intercultural competence and diversity and inclusion, because we really believe strongly. We are absolutely convinced that we cannot effectively deliver on our 3 goals unless we create within Peace Corps an environment which nurtures the strength and potential of all of our volunteers, and that recognizes the differences that exist and celebrates them, because it's all part of our beautiful multicultural nation. It is such an important priority, and we cannot do our work if we don't do that important ICD&I work. Yeah. Our nation's history traces the arc of a union that has yet to be perfected. And I think that we have seen that very clearly, especially in the last couple of years. There is still so much work to be done. And yet history also shows us that the arc of history is long and it bends towards justice, in the words of Martin Luther King. And in the words of President Obama, he says, hatred in the human heart can recede. Lines between races and tribes can fade away. And what's left is a simple truth, e pluribus unum, one people, united together. The principles that we hold so dearly as a community, as a nation, as a people, respect, inclusion, mutual understanding, peace, love for humanity. These inform the way we at Peace Corps enter into our host countries and our host communities, and in fact shape the very work that we do, and hopefully shape us as people that we carry on for the rest of our lives in working with communities around the globe. As we build a volunteer force that reflects the diversity of our nation, as we commit ourselves to fostering mutual understanding of our varied experiences and building stronger, more inclusive Peace Corps family. As we dedicate ourselves to building peace and friendship, not only overseas, but especially here at home as well. There's so much work to do here. The extraordinary men and women that we celebrate tonight are really paving the way. They show us how it can be done, and we honor you and thank you for that service. In doing so, the winners of the Franklin H. Williams Award embody the very essence of Peace Corps. Thank you, and you're going to meet all of them in just a moment. So now, So now I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about the John F. Kennedy Awards. In his final State of the Union address, President Kennedy declared, "Nothing carries the spirit of American idealism or expresses our hopes better or more effectively in the far corners of the earth than the Peace Corps." What amazing words are those. 100 years this year after President Kennedy's birth, we continue to draw inspiration from our founder's ideals, from the bold spirit of innovation that he ignited, to the spirit of servant leadership that he so profoundly modeled. In 2006, the Peace Corps established the John F. Kennedy Service Awards to honor the hard work and sacrifice of individuals who have given extraordinary service to the Peace Corps at home and abroad. Among this year's recipients are currently serving volunteers, Peace Corps staff members, a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and as we celebrate the 20th anniversary, a Peace Corps response volunteer. And they are extraordinary people, and you're going to meet all of them in a minute. These recipients exemplify exceptional service and leadership in furthering Peace Corps' mission and 3 goals. And you all know the 3 goals, but I'm going to repeat them anyway because they're in my speech. And these 3 goals are, number 1, a development goal to help the people of interested nations meet their needs for trained men and women. Number 2, helping to promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of people served. And number 3, promoting a better understanding of other people on the part of Americans. Also, we want to take this opportunity to recognize those who we love, but we have recently lost, who dedicated so much of their life's work to Peace Corps' mission, and to the ideals of Peace Corps. As a volunteer in the early 1960s, a member of the group known as El Salvador One, Tony Bellotti was one of the first volunteers to serve in Central America. There, his service sparked a singular passion for sustainable agriculture, which would shape the rest of his remarkable career as a world-class scientist and a lifelong humanitarian. Ambassador Christopher Stevens. Yeah, let's clap for Tony. Ambassador Christopher Stevens was an extraordinary Foreign Service officer who dedicated his life to enhancing mutual understanding and respect between the people and government of the United States and the peoples and governments of the Middle East. He was quite simply the right man at the right moment to create a window of opportunity for a quantum leap in the progress and prospects for peace in Libya, as it has been said. We are deeply proud and honored that Ambassador Stevens traced his roots back to his Peace Corps service in Morocco, and he frequently spoke about his Peace Corps service as part of his diplomatic service. Let's have a hand for Ambassador Chris Stevens. Marielle Snow was already a cancer survivor when she applied for and was accepted as a Peace Corps volunteer in 2014. She was thrilled to arrive in Botswana, and her community, aptly called Good Hope, embraced her as one of their own. Sadly, her cancer returned and we lost her last year. But as you will hear, she will not soon be forgotten by her community or the volunteers and Peace Corps staff who loved her so much and who were so fortunate to be able to serve with her. Let's hear it from Marielle. And then finally, my dear friend Sue Fox, who served in Liberia from 1968 to 70 and continued to uphold the Peace Corps mission throughout the rest of her life. From helping to establish a formal partnership between Rotary International and the Peace Corps, to supporting Peace Corps partnerships and leading countless service activities throughout her long career, both here in the United States and at home. Hers was a career and a life rich in service to others. We miss her so much. We honor Sue's service, and we're so grateful that her husband, Robert Martin, is here with us tonight. Robert, can you stand, please? Where's Robert? Robert, come down. Robert, come on down here for a minute. It's so dark in here you can't see Robert, so we have to have Robert come down here. Is that okay, Robert? Yeah. Thank you, Robert. We're so sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much for mentioning our name.
Sue Fox. Tonight, we honor the memory of those we have lost but loved. And as we celebrate the recipients of the Franklin H. Williams Awards and the JFK Service Awards, we are also reminded of the exemplary contributions that Peace Corps volunteers, Peace Corps staff, and returned Peace Corps volunteers make every single day. Our stories, the stories of our volunteers and our communities and our returned volunteers, are fundamentally stories of hope. They show what is possible when willing communities and passionate, dedicated, hard-working women and men come together, side by side, shoulder to shoulder, to work together towards a better future for this world that we all share. They remind us that in a tumultuous, sometimes turbulent world, in the face of shifting, tangled, and often fractured frontiers, Peace Corps matters now more than ever. We are not here to curse the darkness, said President Kennedy, but to light a candle. We are not here to curse the darkness, but to light a candle. Tonight we are reminded of the singular acts of love and kindness and selflessness that can illuminate paths to peace. This is our work. Thank you to each and every one of you for the light you have brought into this world. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And now it's my honor to introduce a special video message from someone who needs no introduction, a person who's a true supporter of Peace Corps, a lifelong champion of our mission, and someone who has a very important message to deliver. This is Ambassador Caroline Kennedy. Thank you all.
Hello, I'm Caroline Kennedy. Greetings from Tokyo. It's a special honor to join you today to celebrate the John F. Kennedy Service Award winners. I know how much President Kennedy cared about the Peace Corps. He felt that it symbolized America's greatest ideals, and he would be proud today to see how it continues inspiring generations to change the world. My father truly believed that each of us could make a difference, and that everyone must try. He wanted to harness the idealism of young Americans to help them make a difference in the lives of others. He called the nation to service, and many of you answered that call. Many people have told me that they joined the Peace Corps because, for the first time, they felt that someone asked them to give back to their country. For 55 years, Peace Corps volunteers have contributed immensely to their host countries and have touched millions of lives. Since 1961, over 200,000 Peace Corps volunteers have served in 140 countries. Today, from Albania to Zambia, Peace Corps volunteers are working to improve the lives of people in nearly 70 countries. They promote maternal and child health, basic education, rural development, water and sanitation, and climate change adaptation. I want to congratulate this year's winners of the John F. Kennedy Service Award. I'm deeply grateful for your extraordinary commitment, and I commend your service both at home in the United States and around the world. I'd also like to thank the almost 7,000 volunteers and trainees who are currently serving, and the returned volunteers who have channeled their experiences into so many other kinds of service. My uncle, Sergeant Shriver, said, "The Peace Corps represents the best virtues in this society. It stands for everything that America has ever stood for. It stands for everything we believe in and hope to achieve in the world." Many thanks to all of you for staying true to these ideals and for representing the best of America throughout the world.
Thank you for that round of applause. And I think we should give Carrie Hessler Radelet and Ambassador Kennedy another round of applause. We're very lucky, even though we have lost President Kennedy, to have his family members who are so committed and appreciative of the Peace Corps. And Ambassador Kennedy, of course, would have been here if she hadn't been all the way around the world. But maybe we'll get her in the next 5 years, right? So we have many awards to give tonight, but before we move on to the distribution of the Franklin H. Williams Awards, I would like to introduce a special guest that we have here. My office, the Office of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services, recently hosted a storytelling competition. And we received over 70 entries from RPCVs all around the country. We selected the best 7. So you can hear this week at Peace Corps Connect from the best Peace Corps storytellers that we know about. But we have one of them here tonight to give you a story from her time in service. And I would like to provide a brief introduction for her now. So I'd like to introduce Portia Boykin, third gold champion, returned Peace Corps volunteer, Ecuador, and the current West Coast diversity recruiter for Peace Corps. Portia is also, of course, one of our best storytellers. She will be giving you a story tonight that is entitled Ecuador Surprises. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Portia Boykin to the stage.
Ecuador, I can't believe Peace Corps selected me to serve in Ecuador. I didn't even know where Ecuador was, and I had never been out of the country. But when I received that invitation in the mail in that big blue envelope, I knew I was on the best cultural experience of a lifetime. So I packed my bag and headed down to South America. During my Peace Corps training, our training advisors did an excellent job at teaching us all about Ecuador, the language, the culture, the 4 regions, and the 3 ethnic groups. There were mestizos all over the country, the Afro-Ecuadorians in the province of Esmeraldas, and there were indigenous in the Andes Mountains. Wait, did you say Afro-Ecuadorians? There's black people in Ecuador? What? I know we were everywhere, but for some reason, well, I didn't know about Ecuador, but I didn't think that we were in Ecuador, so I was intrigued. I got my site placement, and they placed me in the beautiful city of Ibarra. La Ciudad Blanca is what they call it, the White City. It was a city painted in white and had colonial Spanish buildings. The city was surrounded by lush green volcanoes and mountains and lakes, and it was nestled in the Andes Mountains. And not to mention, this was an urban modern paradise. People were very educated, they had fancy cars and iPhones, and they took yearly vacations internationally. My host mom was a perfect example of a woman in Ibarra. Posh Corps all the way. They also had, besides the mestizos, they also had the indigenous and those Afro-Ecuadorians. Where do they come from? I know they didn't come all the way from the coast. Where are the Afro-Ecuadorians from here? Oh, Los Afros, the Afro-Ecuadorians. They're from around the mountain in Valle de Chota. Where is that? You just take a bus, go around the mountain. So that's exactly what I did. I got myself together, I went down to the bus terminal and got on that big green bus that said El Valle. On that bus ride, I was nervous, my heart was pounding, my hands were clammy because I didn't know what I was going to encounter. But I know it was going to be a little town full of black people. And on the bus ride there, I noticed a drastic difference between Ibarra and heading over to Chota. First of all that green lush mountains, those changed into tans and browns. The people on the bus were black just like me, but I still stood out like a sore thumb. And it was 10 degrees hotter. It was so hot in Valle de Chota. When we arrived to our bus stop, folks got off the bus and I did too, and I thanked the bus driver. And as the bus drove away in a cloud of dust, I saw a woman standing there almost as if she was waiting for me. That woman was Doña Mercedes. She looked at me and said, "Oye, ¿de dónde eres?" Me, where am I from? I'm from the United States. My name is Portia, and I'm a Peace Corps volunteer, as I handed her my official letter of introduction. She looked at the letter. She looked up at me. She looked back at the letter and said, "Sí, niña, but where are you from?" "I'm from California in the United States." She looked at me and said, "No, mi cariña, where are you from?" At that moment, I knew exactly what she was asking me. I had been asked this question before, but not by a person like her, and not in her sweet, caring, but serious tone. I looked at her and said, "Well, I'm originally from Alabama. It's a state in the South. My whole family is from there, and our ancestors, they're from West Africa. I'm not sure where, but they're from West Africa. ¿Y usted?" She looked at me and smiled. She said, "Oh, we lived here for a long time. Our family came from Colombia, but we're from the Congo." We stared at each other, and she said, "Venga." So I went along with her, and in those 2 minutes, I realized we made this connection with each other as people from the African diaspora. And I walked with her, and she taught me all about the city of Chota. Chota was this beautiful, small little town nestled between the Chota River and the Pan American Highway. There were only a few hundred people there, and it had this bustling culture that you could not escape. Women walked around with baskets on their heads. Men had machetes in their hands. Kids ran back and forth from the river and greeted us. "Hola, doña. Hola, ¿cómo estás?" She taught me all about the folks in the community, and we ended up back at her house, where she made me this big plate of guandules y arroz, the best beans and rice I had ever had in Ecuador. We talked about our similarities and our differences being of the African diaspora. She shared with me all of her cultural experiences there, and I shared with her mine. And as I went home that evening on the bus, I was no longer nervous or clammy. I had this huge smile on my face. I was so happy because I said, this is an experience of a lifetime. I'm here in this beautiful rural community, and I'm also living and working in this urban paradise. And I know my 2 years is full of a cultural experience, and not only that, but the best of both worlds. Thank you.
Thank you, Portia, for that wonderful story. Portia is very tall, and so I have to lower the microphone to get it back down to my level. But yes, that was a wonderful story. Another round of applause for Portia. And now we are going to move to the presentation of the Franklin H. Williams Awards. As Director Carrie Hessler-Radelet informed us, Franklin H. Williams was one of the founding fathers of the Peace Corps. He joined the agency in 1961, year one. Now, how many of you were involved with the Peace Corps in 1961? Anybody? Got a few? Okay, round of applause. 55 and still going strong, that's right. So, and Director Hessler-Radelet also talked about his contributions to the Peace Corps. But before his time with the Peace Corps, Franklin H. Williams had already distinguished himself as a leader in the civil rights movement in this country. He had been an assistant for Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and he had also, as a lawyer, argued cases, civil rights cases, that had taken place in the South before the Supreme Court. And this was the type of activity that really gained the attention of Sergeant Shriver, and it made Sergeant Shriver think, this is someone that I want to work with. And of course, they partnered throughout the early years of the Peace Corps to make a lot of the major policy decisions. I've also heard that it was Franklin H. Williams' idea to institute the 5-year rule for Peace Corps staff. I can't verify that though, so we'll just think about that. But This evening, we honor Franklin H. Williams' contributions to the Peace Corps and his lifetime of dedication to world peace and friendship by granting this award in his name to return Peace Corps volunteers with diverse ethnic backgrounds who have demonstrated a continued commitment to service beyond their time as Peace Corps volunteers. The recipients of this award are also champions of the third goal of Peace Corps. They continue to tell their stories, sharing the cultures of the people that they served with their American communities. Our award recipients also inspire the next generation of Americans who will answer Kennedy's call and serve as Peace Corps volunteers. So the Franklin H. Williams Awards tonight will be presented by another inspirational returned Peace Corps volunteer, and that is our Peace Corps Chief of Staff, Laura Chambers. Round of applause for Laura Chambers. Ms. Chambers served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal from 1984 to 1986, where she supported women's cooperatives. And before coming to the Peace Corps as Chief of Staff in 2014, she has a long career as a leader in the nonprofit sector, working with organizations such as Civic Ventures, Global AIDS Alliance, and most recently, AARP. So please join me in welcoming Laura Chambers to the stage. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Laura will be giving away these beautiful glass bowls to our award recipients. Our first recipient tonight of the Franklin H. Williams Award is Kendrell Maston. Round of applause. Mr. Maston served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Zambia, promoting aquaculture for improved livelihoods and food security. Since returning from service, he has worked as a Peace Corps recruiter in the Central Region and completed a Paul D. Coverdell Peace Corps Fellowship at Kennesaw State University. His steadfast dedication to the youth and men of his community has led him to serve as a volunteer guest speaker for the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, mentoring through the Real Men Read program, and founding the organization Next Step Progress, a financial capability and economic empowerment organization. He is being honored tonight for his continued service to his community on the south side of Chicago and his contributions to recruiting the next generation of Peace Corps volunteers. A round of applause for Kendrell Maston. Our next recipient of the Franklin H. Williams Award is Dr. Paul M. Brown. Dr. Brown served in Côte d'Ivoire as an English teacher. After Peace Corps, he pursued a career in education and has been teaching French to secondary and university students for nearly 4 decades. He is currently an associate professor of French at Clark Atlanta University. With his expertise in international education, he developed and established the Office of International Education and Study Abroad at Clark Atlanta University. And he has spent the last 20 years sending students to study in countries around the world. He was also chosen as an attaché for the Congolese Olympic team during the 1996 Summer Olympics, which he says can be contributed to his Peace Corps experience and strong background in international education. He is being recognized tonight for his unwavering dedication to our third goal and his tireless efforts to inspire others to serve as Peace Corps volunteers. Dr. Paul M. Brown. Our next recipient of the Franklin H. Williams Award is Ravi N. Dutta. Ravi. Mr. Dutta served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Namibia, where he worked with diverse groups ranging from school board members increasing parental involvement in education to local entrepreneurs launching micro-enterprises. He has a long history of service all over the world that includes aiding Save the Children's post-tsunami redevelopment program in Indonesia, guinea worm eradication with the Carter Center in South Sudan, integrating technology into Jordan's education system, and developing a new American Chamber of Commerce in Laos through the USAID-funded Emerging Markets Development Advisors Program. Please join me in honoring Mr. Dutta for his dedication to service and his ongoing work to achieve the third goal of Peace Corps. So, along with the returned Peace Corps volunteers who were honored as Franklin H. Williams Award recipients, the director of the Peace Corps honors one individual with the Franklin H. Williams Director's Award to recognize outstanding commitment and steadfast support to the cause of peace and civic involvement, as well as commitment to the support of Peace Corps' mission and its volunteers and returned volunteers. Now, unfortunately, this year's recipient of the Director's Award cannot be here with us. Even so, I'd like to take a moment and tell you a little bit about our award recipient. This year's Director's Award winner for the Franklin H. Williams Award is Bryan Stevenson. He is the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative. This organization provides legal representation to people who have been illegally convicted, unfairly sentenced, or abused in state jails and prisons. For his work in this area, Mr. Stevenson was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2014. In 2015, he was included in the Time 100, an annual list recognizing the world's most influential people. And just this year, he was named in Fortune's 2016 World's Greatest Leader list. He has successfully argued cases in the United States Supreme Court and won a historic ruling that deemed mandatory life without parole sentences for children 17 and younger as unconstitutional. He and his staff have also initiated major anti-poverty and anti-discrimination efforts that challenge the legacy of racial inequality in America. The Equal Justice Initiative has established the Racial Justice Project, a much-needed program that explores racial history and uses innovative teaching tools to deepen our understanding of the legacy of racial injustice. Mr. Stevenson is also spearheading the creation of a museum called From Slavery to Mass Incarceration that will also serve to raise awareness of racial justice issues. We would like to recognize Mr. Stevenson for his efforts that serve to further the cause of world peace and friendship and build upon the racial justice work and the legacy of Ambassador Franklin H. Williams. Please join me in honoring Bryan Stevenson. All right, and we would actually now like to invite all of the Franklin H. Williams Award winners up to the stage for a group photo with Laura Chambers, Chief of Staff. Thank you. Proudly display your shiny bowls, gentlemen. Is this not an excellent looking group of award winners? So thus concludes our Franklin H. Williams Awards ceremony for the evening. And before we transition to the presentation of the John F. Kennedy Service Awards, I would like to introduce another award-winning Peace Corps storyteller, Lisa Darren Grossman. She served as a Peace Corps in Swaziland, and she will share her story with you in honor of all the great work that our volunteers do. So please join me in welcoming Lisa Darren Grossman to the stage, where she will share her story, The Day of Days.
The most common greeting in Siswati, the national language of Swaziland, is Sawubona. It's used as a general hello, but its literal meaning is I see you. This is the story about how one woman in the tiny kingdom of Swaziland taught me about the power of being seen and about the force of inspiration. It's 2003 when I moved to Swaziland as a Peace Corps volunteer doing HIV and AIDS impact mitigation And it's 2003 when I meet Nomsa Masugu, sitting underneath this big marula tree that signifies the center of a community named Buseleni. When she sees me, she walks right towards me. She's wearing this shirt that says doggy style on the front of it. And when she smiles, I can see the space where her front tooth used to be. Cece, she says right away, are you here to help? And when I say yes, she says, can I be a part of it? And from that day forward, the two of us are inseparable, spending almost every day together for the next 2 years. When my time in the Peace Corps comes to an end and I return to New York City, the thing that I miss and I long for the most is my friendship with Nomsa. Fast forward to 2008, and I call Nomsa just as I do every single week. This time, when she answers the phone, before greeting me, she says, Cece, I have decided to run for a position in the Chief's Inner Council of Buseleni, which is the community government. And when she tells me, I am shocked, because I know that in this community there has never been a woman who has run for this position before. But I can hear how excited she is, so the only thing I can think of to respond with is, when are the elections? And I will see you there. It's only a few months later that I find myself back in Swaziland. I will continue to return every year for the next 9 years. Nomsa and I are standing on her homestead, which sits atop this hill that overlooks the entire community of Buseleni. The Mkonvo River is flowing below us, and the hills and the mountains are covered in lush greens. And Nomsa turns to me, and she says, Cece, today is the day of the days. And then she grabs my hand and she puts it on the underbelly of her chin and she goes, see, I even shaved. And the two of us laugh hysterically. Because you see, here in Buseleni, it's nomination day, which means that for Nomsa, it is the day of the days. I have returned to Swaziland because Nomsa is attempting to do something that no woman in this community has done before. She's running for the position of Bukopo, which is community developer, something she's been doing for years without any title or recognition. Nomsa and I leave her homestead and we follow the windy dirt paths down to the center of the community. We pass Babe Ngambule's home on the left. We pass Melusi and Ngobile's homesteads on the right, and everyone waves and greets Nomsa with an excited Sawubona Masugu. When we get to the center of the community, people have already congregated under that marula tree. Men seated to the right, women seated to the left. And when I look at Nomsa, I can sense both the fear and the excitement within her, because she knows she needs 10 hands to be raised in order to get her name put on the election ballot. That's 10 people who do not fear change. We make our way to where we're sitting, which is with a group of women friends of ours, just as the chief is standing up. What happens is people must shout out names, and then 10 hands must be raised in order to get your name put on the elections. So he begins. Who here would like to nominate for the position of Bukopo? And it all happens fast. Hands are being raised and names are being shouted. And before we even know it, there are 5 people who've already been nominated. Nomsa is not one of them. When a quiet lull comes over the crowd, the chief stands up once again and he says, would anybody like to nominate for the position of Bukopo? We hear this quiet voice coming from the left, Masugu. And because it's so quiet, the chief motions for this person to stand, and we see that it's Nomsa's best friend, Sibongile, and she stands up with this cheeky look on her face. And with all the confidence, she just screams, Nomsa Masugu! And Nomsa and I looked shocked, and the chief motions for Nomsa to stand, and she does with a bit of a deer in headlights look on her face, yet confident. And the chief asks, who here would like to support this woman? And we wait. And we wait. But no hands rise. And the chief asks again, who here would like to support this woman? And then I see it, the first hand rise up. it's Mage Similane. And then I see 2, 3, 4 hands in the air. And then I realize it's not just women raising their hands, there are men's hands who are in the air as well. And before we know it, there are 11 hands up. There are 7 women and 4 men who, for the first time in this community, have just publicly voted for a woman. There are 7 women and 4 men who are looking at NOMSA and saying, "We see you." The story doesn't end there. NOMSA gets her name put on the election ballots and she campaigns. She believes that dialogue is the way to create change, so she sits down with groups of women and she shares stories in hopes of them sharing their stories back. So she creates her platform around vulnerability and truth. NOMSA does not follow any paved road. She carries a machete through the bush and she paves the way herself. It's election day. And out of 800 votes, NOMSA loses with 56. But NOMSA has 56 votes. As we're walking home together, I turn to NOMSA and I ask her how she's feeling because I assume she's feeling like me, which is sad and disappointed. And she stops me right there in the middle of the road and she looks at me and she says, "Cece, this is not the end of the road, this is just the beginning." And I realized in that moment that for NOMSA, this was never about winning because she had already done that years ago. And as we continue down those familiar dirt roads side by side, I smile as I remember the day that we met under that great big marula tree, the day when inspiration chose me and inspiration's name was NOMSA. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for that story. And I believe we actually have a picture of your hero right here. So a round of applause for Lisa and the Day of Days. All right. And now we're going to move to the presentation of the John F. Kennedy Service Awards. But before we do, I just wanted to take one moment to recognize a program that is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and that is Peace Corps Response. Round of applause. So this program was actually formed as Crisis Corps back in 1996. And it sends experienced professionals to undertake short-term, high-impact assignments in communities around the world. Since its founding, Peace Corps Response has sent more than 3,000 response volunteers to over 80 countries around the world to intervene in some of the world's most challenging situations. Response volunteers also assisted with disaster response efforts during Hurricane Katrina, marking the first time that Peace Corps volunteers were ever deployed in the United States of America. So again, please join me in saluting Peace Corps Response for reaching this 20-year milestone. All right, and now we will move into the John F. Kennedy Service Awards. These awards are granted every 5 years to members of the Peace Corps family who go above and beyond in their efforts to achieve the mission and goals of Peace Corps. The awards are granted to 2 currently serving volunteers, 2 Peace Corps staff, and 2 returned Peace Corps volunteers who serve as examples to all of us in their promotion of world peace and friendship. Most Peace Corps volunteers begin their service setting out to make a difference in the world. But the truth is, most volunteers don't get to see the true impact of their time in service. We all spend 2 years trying to understand our communities, learning our jobs and just hoping that something that we say or do will make a difference in that community. And it isn't until we look back at our time as volunteers that we realize that it wasn't our time necessarily in the classroom or the clinic that made the most difference. It was the time we spent around dinner tables or around large trees or on long bus rides that made that difference. It is building relationships with people in our community that makes all the difference, both for our communities and for ourselves. But we as volunteers do not undertake this journey alone. We are supported by dedicated, patient Peace Corps staff members that prepare us for the challenges that we face and support us as we inevitably fail and struggle through experiences we don't understand. They provide insight and perspective, and they send us back to our communities with a new definition of success. Tonight's recipients of the John F. Kennedy Service Awards, both staff, current volunteers, and returned volunteers, are among the lucky few whose success is clearly evident to all of us. And through hard work, resilience, and a dedication to truly understand people of other cultures, tonight they are being recognized for their contributions. Our first recipient of the John F. Kennedy Service Award for currently serving volunteers is Lauren Breland. And she's not just receiving this award for her outfit, although she probably deserves an award for her outfit. So Ms. Breland is a volunteer in Thailand focused on youth development. She brings a wealth of experience to her Peace Corps service, having worked in education and the nonprofit sector prior to serving as a volunteer. She serves in Thailand as a youth development volunteer with a sharp focus on healthy lifestyle development, intensive community canvas and assessment, curriculum and program development, intercultural exchanges, and ultimately building community teams to help establish and implement programs that will enable the community to thrive long after Lauren's departure. She has spent much of her adult life working for school districts and various nonprofits across the United States. With a natural gift for words from an early age, Lauren has fused her creativity in the arts by developing culturally sensitive curricula for young people and the communities that need it most. Her personal creative works range from spoken work to short stories to poetry, and her creativity in the arts has naturally progressed into a service with the Peace Corps. She's being honored tonight because of her success in all three of Peace Corps' goals: broadening the world of Thai youth through education, sharing the diversity of America with her community, and bringing American and Thai youth together through art. Ms. Breland has also demonstrated her dedication to her community by extending her Peace Corps service through 2017. A round of applause for Lauren Breland. Our next recipient of the John F. Kennedy Service Award is Teresa Govert. Ms. Govert is a currently serving volunteer serving in Botswana, where she has worked to promote gender equality, raise awareness of gender-based violence, and create employment alternatives for sex workers. Ms. Govert has spent the last 2 years using creative expression as a way to establish safe spaces for people to gather and discuss gender issues. Specifically, she worked with 15 Botswanan communities to participate in the 1 Billion Rising campaign, an initiative to raise awareness about gender-based violence around the world. And through a variety of activities such as dance and photography, they achieved their mission. And achieving that, Govert collaborated with the Ministry of Health, National Gender Affairs, the United Nations, the U.S. Embassy in Botswana, and national television, newspaper, and radio stations. Teresa also has a long history with the Peace Corps, as both of her parents served as Peace Corps volunteers. And they are here with her tonight if they want to stand and be recognized. Teresa's parents, round of applause. But tonight, Teresa Govert is being recognized with a John F. Kennedy Service Award for her diligent and compassionate work with the people of Botswana. Teresa Govert. Our next John F. Kennedy Service Award will go to Trevor Froggy Chance. Mr. Chance is a Peace Corps staff member in Jamaica, beloved by volunteers and his colleagues. As a driver for the Peace Corps office, he safely transports volunteers and staff to their desired locations with warmth and humor. He has had the opportunity to drive 2 Peace Corps directors as well as an advance team for President Ronald Reagan. Mr. Chance is beloved by volunteers and staff, and in the words of one of his many nominators, while his official title is that of driver, his extensive knowledge and history of his beloved country, coupled with his fondness, gratitude, and service to Peace Corps, have made him the unofficial Peace Corps Jamaica Wikipedia for every volunteer's service. Oh, I'm not done with you yet. Come on back. Come on back. We've got more. I could talk about Mr. Chance all night. He is commonly in sensitive situations, everything from helping a Peace Corps volunteer relocate to a new community following a security incident, or picking up a volunteer at the airport following a medical evacuation. He can be relied upon to not only be considerate and confidential, but also perceptive about the volunteer's needs, whether it be for comfortable silence or distracting banter. He knows the best jerk chicken spots and will always offer to stop for a snack, letting the volunteer know that there is nothing more important for him or anywhere else he would want to be but with them and in the moment. It is through these interactions, woven into every volunteer's service throughout the 2-year continuum, that volunteers truly gain a better understanding of the people that they are serving. So he is quintessentially Jamaican, and he shares everything that he knows with all of the volunteers and everyone around him. Tonight, we honor Mr. Trevor Froggy Chance for his 34 years of service to Peace Corps and our volunteers. Our next award recipient tonight is Mr. Brian Dwyer. Mr. Dwyer is receiving a John F. Kennedy Service Award for his distinguished tenure as a Peace Corps staff member. While he most recently served as the Director of Programming and Training in Rwanda, he has also held positions in El Salvador, Belize, and Honduras. Mr. Dwyer joined the Peace Corps family as a municipal development volunteer in El Salvador. As a volunteer, Mr. Dwyer worked on a variety of democracy-strengthening initiatives, led an English language club for local English teachers, and coached the San Ignacio women's soccer team. During his service, he also met his daughter, Natalie, whom he officially adopted in September of 2003, and she is here with us tonight as well, if she'd like to stand and be recognized. Yes. So Brian received a large number of nominations from volunteers and also his colleagues. In the words of one of his colleagues, Brian goes above and beyond in his job requirements to help volunteers stay safe and healthy in their communities and to make a meaningful impact in those communities. He supports them both in their emotional needs as well as their technical needs, which has resulted in reduced numbers of volunteers who end their service early and rather increased numbers of Peace Corps volunteer intakes and extensions. So please join me in recognizing Brian Dwyer for his tireless support of Peace Corps volunteers around the world. Our next recipient of the John F. Kennedy Service Award is Mr. Bob Arias. Mr. Arias is being honored tonight for his contributions as a returned Peace Corps response volunteer. And in addition to serving as a volunteer in Colombia, he has also served as a Peace Corps response volunteer in Panama, Paraguay, Colombia, and Panama again. As one of Mr. Arias' nominators explains, for most of his life, but especially in retirement, Bob Arias has exemplified the Peace Corps' 3 goals: After retiring, Bob served continuously as a Peace Corps response volunteer from 2009 until 2014, moving from Panama to Paraguay to Colombia and finally back to Panama. When someone contacted him to gauge his interest in the project or to ask him to move to another country and take on another assignment, his answer was always an enthusiastic yes. Bob knew there was a need to be met, and he knew that he could meet it. Mr. Arias has also held many staff positions at Peace Corps, including as country director in both Uruguay and Argentina. And also outside of Peace Corps, he has led an active life of service to his community in Salem, Oregon. Bob Arias truly exemplifies the ideals of Peace Corps and has demonstrated his dedication to our mission through his decades of service. Mr. Bob Arias. And our final recipient of the John F. Kennedy Service Award this evening is also being honored for his service as a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and that is Dr. Brian Goff Smith. Dr. Smith served as a volunteer in Guatemala. He fell in love with his Peace Corps site in Chisec, Alta Verapaz, Guatemala, where he extended his service to nearly 4 years after finishing his first tour. While he was there, he noticed that the members of the community in Chisec did not have ready access to quality health care. Because of his experience in the Peace Corps, Brian chose to become a physician, and so he returned to the United States to study medicine. But he has split his time between his duties in New Mexico, got that right, all right, and returning back to Guatemala to serve in a clinic that he worked with partners to set up in Chisec, in his community. So he served his community as a Peace Corps volunteer and continues to serve his Peace Corps volunteer, spending his own time and his own money to travel back and forth from the United States to continue to serve. We're not done with you yet either, Dr. Smith. Right. So he created a clinic that's called Chila Inc. And through his work, Brian pledges to respect and learn from ancient Mayan medical practices with herbal traditions and incorporate them into his Western medicine treatment plans, all the while treating acute, chronic, and complex illnesses. He also vows to ensure communication at all times with all of his patients in their native language, so as to ensure proper understanding and a form of a collaborative effort in his patients' health. So please join me in honoring Dr. Brian Goff Smith. Now we would like to welcome all of the award winners for the John F. Kennedy Service Awards to return the stage for photographs with your shiny bowls. Although I believe Lauren is outshining all of our awards tonight. All right, another round of applause for our John F. Kennedy Service Award winners. The recipients of the 2016 Franklin H. Williams and John F. Kennedy Service Awards are truly inspirational. Each of them has contributed to the Peace Corps legacy in their own meaningful ways. The namesakes of their respective awards would truly be proud and honored of their work and their enduring dedication to world peace and friendship. So let their accomplishments inspire all of us to renew our commitment to the mission of the Peace Corps. And so please join me in honoring all of our award winners tonight with a round of applause. Thank you truly all for your service. And I would like to invite Peace Corps Chief of Staff Laura Chambers back to the stage to deliver our closing remarks.
Thank you, BJ. So how about a round of applause for our rock star, moderator, master of ceremonies, BJ. And for those incredible storytellers, our returned Peace Corps volunteers, can we give them a round of applause also? And how about for our amazing Peace Corps staff and the NPCA team? They've been working on this event for months. Can we give them a round of applause too? So what a night. What an amazing night with amazing award recipients and stories. What an amazing tribute to two Peace Corps luminaries whose vision and legacy continues to shape our work each and every day. Peace is daily, it's a weekly, it's a monthly process, President Kennedy once said, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures. It's not a process for the faint heart, we heard Carrie say earlier today. It's not for the naysayers. It's not for the cynics. It's not for the doubters. Especially not in times like these. Times when we can't help but be reminded, in the words of Franklin H. Williams, that so many of the rights and freedoms we hold dearly are but noble words, mere high-sounding principles, whenever men prove to be too busy to treasure them or too busy to maintain them. He said, "What men have died for, we must live for." Peace requires work. It requires dogged persistence. It requires courage. Yet the stories of our award winners also remind us that our commitment to Peace Corps and its mission is not about blind optimism. Actually, our commitment to peace is grounded in real-life experiences. In the experiences of our fellow volunteers, in the experience of our counterparts and our host country partners, in the experience of our colleagues and our staff, in our own experiences. As members of the Peace Corps community, we don't have to imagine a world where peace and friendship are merely possible. We have seen a glimmer that world already exists over the course of our service and in the service of others. And tonight, 55 years after the founding of our Peace Corps, the recipients of the Franklin H. Williams and the John F. Kennedy Service Awards remind us that Peace Corps impact remains as powerful as ever. And Peace Corps' future, as big, as bold, as bright as this amazing crowd that has gathered here tonight, still lives. Here's the truth, my friends. I believe in Peace Corps because I believe in each of you. I want to thank you all. I want to congratulate the winners again. Congratulations once again to each of you. And here's to Peace Corps, to a past, to a present, and a future that's well worth celebrating. Thank you.
All right, folks, please enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope to see many of you all at Peace Corps Connect tomorrow.